What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from Zoom again, and this time we are here with CC and AR of Nixil. It is great to be able to talk with both of you. Thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for your time.
Yeah, it's so awesome to have all of you here today. Your new album, From the Wound, Spilled Forth Fire, is an absolute awesome album. And as somebody who was listening to All Knots on Tide, I was really excited for this album. Was this intended to just be a continuation of All Knots on Tide, or was From the Wound, Spilled Forth Fire like a new beginning for Nixil in like uncharted territory?
You want to answer that, or should I go?
I would say that it's a little bit of both. Thematically, all of the subject matter is extremely personal and autobiographical in a way. It is a new beginning in the sense that we had a completely new guitarist writing with us on this album as compared to all Knots. So yeah, it's a little bit of both.
Um, was there at all like a preconceived vision of what this album was supposed to sound like in a way, or was this a very like experimental songwriting process?
I feel like our songwriting process tends to be pretty experimental. Um, we all write collaboratively, which is really interesting with five people in a room, coming from pretty different backgrounds and different styles of writing and different influences and stuff. So yeah, it was kind of like, I think we had some ideas kind of brewing since the last album, and that came together for at least a couple of the songs, and then the rest of it, I don't know. It was pretty experimental, I would say. A lot of it, I mean, we wrote a lot of it during the lockdown period and time shortly thereafter, and so I would say it was like a pretty creatively fertile period for all of us, since we're like trapped in a shitty dystopian space, and like really like striving for catharsis. I would say that's probably a really big part of like the music writing piece. I can't speak to the lyrics though.
Yeah. Oh, and we lost CC.
Wait, why didn't you come in here? Sorry, we're in the same
Yeah.
space, but we figured we'd be in different rooms.
Oh,
So
yeah.
awesome, good.
For people who haven't heard the full length album yet, because I do think when you open up with Collapsing the Poles and you end with The Way is the Grave, it's like a real extraordinary experience. For people who haven't heard the full album yet, though, do you feel that the first two singles that we heard so far is maybe a good representation of this whole album, or is that just one little taste of it?
I can say sonically, uh, no. I mean, it's interesting to hear how people are responding to the singles individually. I feel like we didn't write the album as a concept album per se, but everything kind of came together in a sort of really synchronistic way, and that the songs kind of flow in a way, and yet through that there's a lot of pretty dramatic sonic difference from song to song. So yeah, I mean, I hope folks are enjoying the first two singles. The rest of the album, there's definitely some similarities, but also a lot of change in it as it goes along. So yeah.
And you mentioned too, like that this album is on a relatively personal level. As for All Knots Untied, in a way, this is like a pretty like big question in a way. But how did expressing your personal lives and your personal experience manifest into the music that we hear from Nixil? Because personal inspiration can lead to all different types of art forms. So it is kind of like how did it form into the unique sound of Nixil?
Well, for the lyrics specifically, um, the whole point of the band, at least for me, is to give voice to the spiritual other side. Um, and so the lyrics are directly personal in that they have to do with the work that I'm doing and the experiences that I have based on that work. Um, Yeah.
That's always it's always the mask sings. I'm never sure if they're done talking or not. I'm very, yeah, that's why I really want to interview Cult of Fire so bad, just
Oh
because
yeah.
like
Oh yeah.
yeah, but the
I
spirit.
was
Oh, you were saying?
sorry if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Just speaking to the personal stuff, it's been interesting. Like for example, there's a couple of the songs in the album that um, the end of the first side. There's a song which talks about death in a way, and there are several lines in the song that are really specific to C's experience in doing some spiritual work. And at the same time, the first time he presented the lyrics to us when we had already written the song was the same day that I found out that one of my very, very close friends had passed away. And these kinds of synchronicities tend to really seem to happen a lot. And I think it's probably I don't know, some kind of spiritual alignment thing, although we all are certainly on different sorts of paths. But it's just kind of been amazing to me to see, to kind of witness that, like observe that. And also it kind of gives the music an extra sort of like voice for us too. That like, I mean, I wrote my bass lines, I helped, construct the song in general is like, that's how we write together. But then to have the lyrics also like, put a literal voice to the feelings that were coming through for me in that moment it was just I don't know, it's really kind of profound and strange how that happens.
Absolutely, and the reason why I really wanted to speak with Nixil is because I sense spirituality within your music. When I first heard All Knots Untied, that was the first thing I felt was a spiritual essence in a way. So when it comes to making this music about this spiritual epiphany, like, is there almost maybe also like a lot of research involved as well? Because when you have these spiritual experiences, it encourages you to find yourself, and with finding yourself, experience the world around you. So in addition to being in the studio, collaborating on songs together, getting all your musical ideas together, is there also like a lot of exploration with the world around you to cultivate into your music as well?
Yeah.
Absolutely. That is the whole point, really. Like, it's you can't really write from a theoretical essence. You can only write from experience. So, I mean, you can write theoretically, but the point is experiencing the world, right? And the only way you can change or deconstruct yourself is by going through these experiences personally. So, yeah, there's a ton of research. There's a ton of, at least in my case, a ton of ritual. There's a ton of work. Every day is work, and there's a specific intent and goal in mind, and that comes out. It's supposed to come out in the music. The music is supposed to be a voice for that.
But to confront, personal demons and personal darkness as well, it's always cathartic to make music on that. But I've always said that when darkness is the sort of fuel behind your fire, sometimes artists can become victimized by their own product. That's the determination or the analogy that I've always said. So, is there an art to confronting this darkness so you know how to handle it in a way, or do you just kind of have to let it consume you and kind of put you into that rock bottom mode in order to, because the way of rising up is also very influential?
I mean, the rock bottom thing is an interesting way to put it, but I think that on this path, rock bottom is an easy way to start. That's how you begin to learn. But the darkness that we work with isn't really a confrontation at this point. It's a communion. And darkness, it's easy to conflate darkness and evil, or darkness and bad, or darkness and suffering. But in reality, all darkness is what you don't see. It's everything that's behind and underneath, and a lot of the time there's some fucked up shit there, but there's also some really important illumination. Huh.
Oh, you were saying? Yeah.
Sorry, no, it looked like you were going to say something.
No. But a good friend of mine once said though there really is no such thing as rock bottom. It's just the point where you decide to stop digging as well.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
do you almost let the darkness, or even not even just darkness for that matter, but inspiration? Do you almost kind of let it come to you, or is there a way that you maybe are able to seek out the inspiration?
It's definitely a seeking out of the inspiration. There's a constant working with certain entities and ideas, egregores, just like universal concepts that have faces and names and things like that, and that gives the person working a way to direct that focus toward any one specific goal they have at a time. So like if you work with an entity that represents death and rebirth, then you begin to see that in the world around you all the time, and you begin to experience it fully instead of just having a theoretical idea of it. If you work with an entity that is focused on like darker aspects of like sexual illumination, or using that kind of power in order to empower yourself or explore certain territories or whatever, that's that you do the research, you focus, you contact, and you learn, you focus directly through that. So does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And being, that a band is compromised by all five of you, you're all individuals and you all have your own experiences. So, when people tell me, oh, it was a mutual collaboration, I don't really believe that because, you're in a band of five people. There's going to be disagreements. You're writing a dozen or so songs. But could maybe your different headspaces or being in the same world maybe actually help enhance the songwriting in a way?
Yeah, absolutely. This is the first band I've ever been in where everybody has been, I would say, emotionally mature enough to kind of be present with our own personal demons and journeys and processes and feelings, and also to be able to like really use that as fodder for writing, and also like a deeper connection with each other and communication and that sort of stuff, which has been really, again, to use the word profound for me, really profound. Yeah, there's a lot.
Is it better when you're all in the company of each other when writing, or isolation being such a great fuel for creativity? Is it better to be alone in your own element when writing vocals or bass parts?
I would say it's kind of both. I mean, during COVID, we kept practicing with a great deal of safety and checking in all the time and that. So we were isolated from the rest of the world. So that felt really important and like kind of like a saving grace for getting through the thing, to be able to know that like at least every once in a while we would be able to be in this space, albeit distanced, and being safe. That was really helpful. But also like in terms of just the like nuances of the writing process, it can be really helpful to like just be home by myself and like fucking around with some shit, or like riffing off of an idea that we had at practice. I find a lot of my riffs, as cheesy as this sounds, will like come to me in dreams, or like when I'm in a really inopportune moment, it'll be like, oh shit, here's this cool thing, I have to like sing it into my phone so I don't forget it, and then I can fuck with it when I get home or whatever.
Yeah.
Is it okay to say fuck?
Yes. I was waiting. I was waiting for that to be asked. Like,
right,
I was
cool.
like, because every time they drop the F-bomb, I'm like, yep, and they're gonna ask right now, can we say fuck? Yep.
Just making sure.
Yep, swearing is required on this show.
Cool, sweet. All right. So yeah, I mean, it's really both. I think like aloneness is important and necessary, and also, yeah, being in a space together. We really seem to rip off each other really well, which is also kind of special.
And to go off on what you were saying, it seems like inspiration always tends to strike at the most inconvenient times as well.
Oh yeah, universally.
Yep, everywhere. With the spiritual experiences that's expressed on this album, I've always said that art is life, and it can grow and it can develop and even die sometimes as well. So with every album that Nixil has made so far, do you want that to be a snapshot of the spiritual reckoning that you had at that particular moment, or do you think that as more people interpret it, more people experience it, that maybe that spiritual entity can grow and develop with you as you both grow as artists?
I think both, absolutely. I think, as I was saying, we can only write from the experience that we're having at the time. But as this entity of Nixil, or as the albums progress, we're going to be further influenced by those experiences around us. So other people's understanding is going to force us to grow and evolve in different ways, and that will no doubt influence the next album.
Yeah.
I also really love hearing people's interactions with the album. Like every time we get to play a show somewhere, like having folks come up and talk to us about how it felt for them to engage with the music or to like engage with us live. We've heard people use the word spiritual experiences, particularly from a live show, and that feels really poignant and significant to me, since like that's kind of the space that we're writing from too, or at least is.
But I've always said that a spiritual enlightenment can never be replicated in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So like when you play this material live, does it have a completely different sensation in a way, or does it almost kind of put you back at that moment to when you particularly had it?
Yeah, it doesn't. I guess it serves as a form of memory, but there is like power in memory, and like that power, that experience can be brought up and experienced. It's just not obviously in the same raw fashion. But when we
please.
Sorry.
No, if you were saying.
When we play live, I am definitely personally in an altered state, and I reside in that same altered state as we play every time. So like I get lost in that spiritual experience, which is a similar spiritual experience every time we play.
But when you play live, you're gonna have to do some songs off of all. I mean, you don't have to. You could do whatever you want. But like, if you play like a song from All Knots Untied and then do something from this new album and then go back to All Knots Untied, does it almost feel like you're going through different dimensions in time?
Me, it does.
I think depending on the song, there are songs from All Knots that are still completely relevant, and time, while it seems linear, is really not. And so those experiences that were expressed in All Knots are still reverberating, are still relevant, and hopefully the lessons and points of evolution are still going to continue being relevant to us. So I'd like to not say, at least for the most part, our albums are not going to be a past-present concept. They will all exist in a space of continuing evolution, if that makes sense.
Definitely. But sometimes you are working on a song for weeks or hours, months on end. So when you have to work on something for a long period of time, does it almost make it a little bit more difficult to maintain the spiritual energy that initially sparked the idea?
I tend to write the lyrics after songs are finished. Except for sometimes. It's all totally subjective.
That's the next album title right there, Except for Sometimes.
Yeah.
Most of the time I write lyrics after the songs are finished, and I let what we've composed, or what they have mostly composed in the studio, direct what parts of experience I'm having right now need to be expressed. So I don't usually lose that spiritual momentum, because it kind of stays fresh in the beginning of my part of the writing process.
Yeah. And the final question I wanted to ask you is, going by AR and CC, I'm and MT, SG, AB, having these aliases, even if they are like names just abbreviated in a way, but like, do you almost feel that having that abbreviation in a way, or that pseudonym, almost makes you in a way portray like an entity outside of your personal lives in a way? Does it really almost, because even though you mentioned everything you create is personal and all that, I'm not arguing that, but sometimes you're in such an altered state that you maybe lose that essence of reality of where you are. So do you almost feel like you portray either a character or an alter ego or some sort of essence outside of who you personally are?
Absolutely. The whole point of not using our full names, and the whole point of me wearing this and all that, is to take the egoic focus away anyways. Where all the lyrics are personal experiences, the whole point of what we're trying to do is, or the whole point of what I'm trying to do, is be a voice for something bigger. And so, yes, we are all multiplicity. We are all amalgamations of different egos, entities, ideas. You show a different face to certain people than, like, you show a certain face when you're at work and a different face when you're with a friend or a lover, and those can in essence be seen as totally different people. So when
No, you're good. Keep going.
So when we reduce our names just to the letters, the whole point is kind of to take us out of it, and to express, to be a voice for what is more important to me, at least.
Makes it timeless. I feel like it's kind of freeing too, because I like, I mean, we interact with people as ourselves at shows and in the world, whatever. Like, there's no, I respect Cult of Fire and bands, Gorea. I know I'm saying that wrong.
I'm a journalist and I butchered that name 1,000 times, so no shit.
They're great.
Yeah.
I just, the folks who fully conceal themselves, like, full respect to that. For me, like, I like the freedom of, when I'm in the space of doing Nixil stuff, I don't have to be the professional person and all the other stuff that's associated with my name. I could just be this voice screaming at people and playing bass and interacting with my bandmates and interacting with the energy. I think that's important to me about the separation with the name thing.
So my actual final question is, who are you?
That's a great question.
This is the part where you take the mask off and you reveal yourself, like the killer in Scream, kind of.
It's just another mask.
I just have the Scream mask underneath this.
Oh,
anonymous mask.
Oh man, we got some music video ideas happening. You already entered the other dimension. The way that you just got up in the middle of the Zoom call, you disappeared, and then you ended up there. Like, that was magical in itself. So this is already, like, Guar. You're giving Guar a run for their money. They claim to be aliens, but I've seen those guys. So before we go, I want to thank you both so much for your time, for such an awesome conversation, and most of all, thank you for this amazing new album. Is there just anything else with the release of From the Wounds Spilled Forth Fire that you would like to promote in terms of shows coming up, or what else we could be expecting? I hope a New York date is somewhere in there.
There is a New York date. It will be October 6th. We're going to announce a tour on August 1st. So there'll be a bunch of dates. So that's really exciting. We have the one only local show we have this year is coming up August 17th, and then we have a whole bunch of other shows coming up. I just want to, I really appreciate you having this conversation with us. It's a lot more interesting than, I'm always afraid of, what folks are going to ask. So
I-
it's fun to be able to talk about this sort of stuff.
I appreciate it. It's always great to be able to have this spiritual discussion. But thank you guys so much. Everybody, we are here with Nixil, From the Wound, Spilt Forth Fire. Be sure to pick that up when it comes out. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you next time.